Let's make 2025 your year of new hobbies. Hi, I'm Lexi, and in 2024, I tried over 18 new hobbies. Yeah, I was a little insane, but it's okay. It's okay because we're here. And for those of you who are new here, hi, welcome. I'm Lexi. I am a self-proclaimed hobbyist, or as you guys like to call me, the final hobby boss, which love that even more. But last year, I spent my entire year just exploring and finding new hobbies. And I'm going to teach you how you can do the same today. Before I send you off on your little hobby adventure, first we need to talk about why you need a hobby. Maybe you're dealing with a stressful work or school situation. Maybe you're feeling unfulfilled with your life. Maybe you're having trouble staying present and you deal with anxiety. Or maybe you're having some creative block. Or if you're me, you're dealing with all the above all at once, and it can feel very isolating. So let's rewind a little bit before I was the certified hobby final boss. And let's rewind back to like 2021. 2021, I decided to pursue my master's. We were all still in lockdown and school was virtual. And I was bored and I felt like I needed to do something with my career. So I decided to go back to grad school. And I got my master's and it was the most stressful time of my life. I don't think I've ever worked that much ever. So I would get off my full-time job and then my school is in California. So I would literally go from working from 9 to 5 and then 6 to whenever is when I would be working on my school assignments because they're 3 hours behind me. And I'd literally be sitting in class and just trudging through my homework assignments. It was literally the most stressful time of my life. Also in 2021, I got engaged, which hooray, yay, we're super excited, we're super stoked. But I just started a grad school program. So there's no effing way I'm going to be planning a wedding, working a full-time job, and going to grad school full-time. There's just no way I can do all three. So we had a very long engagement. Bless him, bless my husband for bearing with me. But he literally was my whole support system throughout grad school. But during that time, like I said, I had no free time, no downtime. There was no time for hobbies, no time I made time to doom scroll TikTok, but I really just felt like I had no time. It was never my own. It was my company's time or it was my grad school's time. But time was just never my own. And I don't know, it really does something to you. Those of you who've worked full time and gone to grad school full time, you know what I'm talking about. But until you do that, I think it just feels very unfathomable because it was to me. And in college, I grew very poor. So in college, I was working 3 to 4 jobs, but I guess I wasn't using my brain as much. So it didn't feel so exhaustive. I've always worked and gone to school, but working my 9 to 5 job, which is already very complex, and then also doing grad school, which is way too much. And then the next year I graduate, we're excited, we're having a wonderful time. We're out in California. We made my best friends. Couldn't be happier with my experience at grad school. But I immediately launched straight into wedding planning. And then I also launched into planning a big move. My husband ended up getting a job here in Atlanta, and we were living back in Charleston at the time. So I literally was trying to coordinate wrapping up my life here in Charleston and moving while also planning a wedding. And I'm a designer, so I was loony enough to try to do all the wedding signage myself. I did all my invitations, literally everything I did. And so now we're out of school and I've just taken that time I had with school and just full on replaced it with wedding planning and wedding designing and stuff I probably could have paid people to do. But I'm just so type A and so controlling that my little heart just would not let that go. I really enjoyed designing it, but I probably spent way too much time on that. So again, now it's 2023. There's no me time. There's no hobby time. Everything is okay, I need to get a facial for the wedding. I need to go look at linens for the wedding. I need to schedule this call for the wedding. So like again, my time is not my own. I'm working full time, and now I'm planning this huge event, like one of the biggest events of my life, all the time, nonstop, like a crazy person. So finally in 2024 is where I caught my breath. Me and my husband, after the wedding, we went on a beautiful honeymoon to Cape Town, and had a beautiful time. Really enjoyed it. Really loved Cape Town. And that was like the first like breath of fresh air, where I was able to kind of just stop and focus on me and like, what do I need? What do I want out of life? And so I like really went into 2024 with that energy of like focusing on myself and my own personal needs. And what do I need to like make myself happy on a regular basis? So that's why I got into hobbies. And you know, your situation might look different. It probably does look different, but there's this sense of like getting into the rigmarole of a 9 to 5, you know, working full time, or if you're in school, doing that full time, where your time is just not your own. And it sucks. It sucks. It sucks that we can't just like exist as humans and live life and have all our needs met, because I feel like there's something truly beautiful when you are freed up to have that amount of time where you're without the pressure of like providing, without the pressure of achieving, you know, you're able to just kind of exist as you are. But anyway, my life kind of got back to a normal, a baseline in 2024, and I had more free time than I had had in years. And I really wanted to focus on the things that I enjoy, the things that bring me joy. And so I read somewhere that people were trying to like have fun events sprinkled throughout the week so that they wouldn't just be like going to work, coming home, go to gym, come home, cook. Like it wouldn't be so mundane. They'd sprinkle in a little event here and there. And so that's what I started with. Okay, now that we've talked about why you might be needing a new hobby or why you really need to turn this on and like really seek them out in 2025, let's talk about how you're going to do this. I think the biggest question I get asked a lot of the time is, okay, finances. Like, how are we paying for this? How are we paying to go to 18 different hobbies? And I completely understand that. Okay, now the first place I'd recommend you start is to look at the library. The libraries, at least in the States, offer so many different opportunities and different craft classes. Like I've seen crochet, I've seen knitting. I took my siblings to anime club. Like there are so many different hobbies that they pursue at the library, and they're available at all different times. I think the biggest thing is to make sure you're like looking in advance, because the stuff on the weekends, it books up pretty quickly. Like there's this drawing class that I've been dying to get into, and it's just so booked. So start with your local library. And also most of those events are free or offered at a very low price. So very manageable, very easy, definitely very like economically sound, like especially if you're doing like a low spend month, like the library is the place to go. Now, the second place I'd recommend you look are at creative reuse stores. Creative reuse stores are like thrift stores, but for arts and crafts. And they offer a plethora of workshops and different things for you to do. And I've traveled to a couple. I'm from North Carolina, so I went to one there. They have workshops. The ones here in Atlanta do. But just search for your local creative reuse store. And there's a list online. I'll put it in the video, but there's a list online of all the creative reuse stores in the United States. I think she updates it like yearly, so it might be a touch out of date. Like it might not have the newest creative reuse stores, but there definitely are some in just about every state. Okay, and the next place I'd recommend you check out would be your local community centers. Community centers also offer craft workshops, like pottery. I've seen all sorts in Atlanta, but again, it's like gonna be, you have to set an alarm for when it opens, so that you can be the first person to book. The next thing I'd recommend is talk to your friends. If you don't have crafty friends, maybe comment below like where you are and a craft you'd be interested in learning and something that you could teach. I've been recommending this to people and it's been working as well, but doing craft bartering. I also do this with my friends. So I have one friend that teaches loom weaving and one friend that teaches Decoden. Okay, let's all get together and let's just have like a crafty day, and you teach me this and I'll teach you this, and we'll just have a really good time. So craft bartering, or like just getting together with your friends who might have a different craft than you, Look for a local craft club. I've been seeing them pop up all around the country, including Atlanta. I just started the Atlanta Craft Club, so please check us out. But other than that, I think those would be the 4 places I would think to look first to be economically friendly. Now, just in general for finding the classes, I just go straight to Google. I'm like, Google, where's the local calligraphy class? Google, where's the archery class? I just search archery class near me. It's really not rocket science. I don't make it too hard on myself. Sometimes something else I'll do to find craft classes is I'll just look at places that I've been to before that offer craft classes. So in Atlanta, there's this place called the Bakery or the Supermarket, and they offer craft classes all the time. That's where I took my collaging class. That's where I've taken my Decoden class. Like places where you already have craft workshops, like look for those. And they also offer a sliding scale rate for tickets. So you kind of pay what you can within a range and you're still able to enjoy the class. Okay, we've talked about why we need a new hobby. We talked about how we're going to make this more economical. Now let's talk about what we're going to pick to do first. Okay, so the first thing I would say is to ask yourself, what's a skill that you desire? Something that you wish you were able to do, but you can't currently do at this moment. For me, that would be illustration. I really want to be able to be a better illustrator and be able to draw things that I'm seeing out in the world. And I'm terrible at it, like terrible. I'm probably being dramatic, but I'm just not where I want to be with illustration. So that's a skill and a hobby that I'm going to work on developing. Another question to ask yourself is, what's something you've done in the past that's brought you joy? So growing up, my grandpa and I, we would always bake together. We would go to the kitchen, we'd use box cake mix, and we'd make the most delicious cakes I've ever had. But obviously they're more special and more meaningful to me because I did it with someone I loved. I did it with my grandpa, and he took the time to teach me how to properly bake things. And that's memories I will always cherish. And whenever I get to bake and I get to try a new skill or try something really hard like macarons and I master it, like I feel so confident. I feel so proud of myself, so on top of the world. So what's something like that for you? What's something you've done in the past and every time you do it, you feel so confident or you're so proud, you're showing it off to everybody? What's that thing for you? That's the hobby we're going with. And the last question I tell you to ask yourself is, what's something you always wanted to do as a kid, but your parents wouldn't let you or they couldn't afford it? In my situation, it was always we couldn't afford it. But this year, well, probably like last year, I was able to do tennis. Tennis has kind of a high barrier of entry. You need tennis rackets, you need tennis shoes, you need court time, and like, in my area, it's very gate kept. But back to the original point, which is, what was something that you always wanted to do as a kid? And I don't mean that kinetic sand from that infomercial your mom went by. I mean more specifically, like, what's something that you really wanted to pursue? Oh, another one of mine was karate. Like, I really wanted to do karate, but my mom was very afraid that I was going to try out my moves on my grandparents, which, like, why would I do that? So just think about whatever that thing is that your parents wouldn't let you do. Maybe start there and just heal something within your own inner child. Okay, now for my top 5 hobbies I'd recommend. Okay, first, no surprise, junk journaling. I love junk journaling so much. It's like something new that just found me. And if you're like, what the heck is junk journaling? It's like scrapbooking's cool older sister. Like, it's just so much more free form. It's not so much about perfect layouts or, perfect imagery. It's more so about like capturing the moment through junk, through the things that you find, through stickers, all that stuff. So I really like junk journaling also because it's very economical. Like, in another way that it's opposite of scrapbooking is that you're supposed to use the junk that you interact with on a regular basis to make like kind of the layouts of your page. So things like receipts, tickets, admission notes, like just things like that, guest checks. All those things are really what make up your junk journal. So you don't have to buy anything extra like scrapbook paper or things like that. And then you can also go to thrift stores to find more journaling supplies. I know some of you have done that. So just go check out thrifting stores. When I go to thrifting stores, I look for like music sheets old books, old National Geographics, things like that to really flesh out my junk journal. The next hobby I would recommend is yoga. I recommend yoga because it's such a mindful hobby to have, and it helps you to slow things down, especially if you're someone who deals with anxiety, you deal with not being present, you're constantly doom scrolling or you're stressed. Yoga is the perfect activity to kind of get you out of your own head and just focusing on your breath work or just focusing on movements and flow. And it's not super strenuous. Also with yoga, like you do that in a community of people. And I've never been in a yoga space and felt, okay, maybe one time in Charleston I did, but very rarely do I go into yoga environments and feel other or feel isolated or feel like I don't fit in. Like most yoga rooms I go into, I feel like I fit in, even when I was a beginner. Now I've been practicing yoga for like 5 years, so I kind of know what I'm looking for when it comes to a yoga studio. But just be on the lookout for community days. I know here in Atlanta, there's this one venue, Politan Row, that will have free, or Colony Square, that has free yoga on the green. And I see a lot of that on Eventbrite. So I'm sure that's all over. Just look for some free yoga events near you. Or if going to a yoga class sounds like way too much, you're on YouTube, go look at other creators. I'll tag my favorite creator, I'll put her page up, but there's so many good yoga instructors here on this app. So don't be afraid to try them out. The number 3 hobby I'd recommend is coloring. I love coloring so bad. Like I thought, like, when I saw other adults doing it, I was like, ugh, like, you're coloring. And I don't know why I felt that way, because obviously I loved to color as a kid. But I think when I grew up, the problem became I didn't really find enough coloring books that reflected me and my interest and my taste, or like kind of the vibe that I want with coloring. But I really love the Coco Wyo books. There's another creator that I really love. I like her books. They depict Black women. But yeah, just finding a coloring book that works for you and starting simple. Like you can go get coloring markers, which are just alcohol markers. You can go get alcohol markers from Marshall's for like $12. That's what I did. And I did end up buying the Ohuhu art fancy ones, but my $12 ones work pretty good. They're not Ohuhu. I wouldn't go that far, but they work pretty well. And honestly, my husband, who had never colored before, didn't notice the difference between the two. So do with that information what you will. But coloring is a very cheap, low intensity hobby. And also it just turns my mind off. Again, the anxiety, like it just quiets it completely. I'm just like so focused on finishing my my coloring image. And there's so many coloring communities as well online that you can join and be a part of. So really kind of getting out of that loneliness bubble and meeting people and interacting with others can also be really fun with coloring. The next hobby I would recommend is pottery. And this can be pottery painting, but I really am talking about like pottery wheel throwing, which can be a bit expensive. I think the class that I took though was $65. And so for one person, it's pretty reasonable, or for a date night, that felt pretty reasonable. But there's also some at the community centers. That was one class that always gets booked up, so you have to be on top of it. But pottery is a really good one because you're working with your hands. You can't touch your phone. Like literally you can't, because you have wet clay all throughout your hands. So you're not doom scrolling. You're not stressing about work. You're not stressing about school. You're just focused on the hobby at hand, and you're focused on trying to make your piece of pottery turn out right. Now, don't go to pottery and expect to be like a brilliant genius unless you've been doing it forever, because I definitely went with that expectation and I was very quickly humbled. Like everything that I tried to throw, I did not. Like the instructor came and threw. Actually, this is something I made from my pottery class. And I say I very loosely. The instructor like mainly did most of this. I added the fun little design wiggles. But she definitely helped get me the shape of the bowl or the trinket dish. So pottery can be a really, really fun one, but also like just making sure you're looking for things that are more economical, more friendly. Also, when I was talking about creative reuse stores, I forgot to mention Facebook Marketplace. If you're in the States, Facebook Marketplace, oh my God, that is where I go to get a lot of hobbies, and buy nothing groups. So if you're on Facebook, there are these things called buy nothing groups, and you just put out a request of like, hey, I need 12 chairs for tomorrow and I'll return them. And literally your neighbors will just chime in and be like, I have two. So it's like, well, okay. I mean, thank you. That helps. Every bit helps. But buy nothing groups are a really big way of how I started a lot of these hobbies. Even coloring materials, those are up there. A lot of scrapbooking, junk journal stuff will be up there on Facebook Marketplace for pretty cheap or pretty reasonable. Just make sure you're weeding out the ads. So like Etsy and Amazon will also be there, but just make sure you're looking for local pickups only. Okay, and then the last hobby I'll recommend is zine making. I really enjoy zine making, and it kind of caught me off guard because I'm like, okay, how fun can making a little mini magazine be? But I enjoy it so much. I had such a good time. I made a zine for my first anniversary, which your first wedding anniversary is paper. So I wanted to do something with paper. And making a zine is such a little fun activity. It's normally like, a zine is normally a little like instructional, or it's really about democratizing information. So you're trying to spread out the word of them. That's at least the history of zines. So like, during the 80s with different wars, like people were using zines to mass publicize information. And I'm sure during other big social movements they were used. But now more so people use them as a way of like exploring topics important to them, like healthcare or Black Lives Matter or things like that. People use zines to kind of get the word out and kind of express their own thoughts. I personally use zines to express where I am in a current moment. And there's a really cool Instagram creator who makes really beautiful ones who kind of does the same thing, where she explores like where she is currently in her life. But yeah, and zine making is very cheap. All you really need is paper, paper and some old magazines. That's normally what I use when I start a zine. And that kind of helps me get through it. I kind of make like a collage or find ways to incorporate words and different fun things like that. And that is a wrap on why you need hobbies. Maybe go try 18 of them. Maybe don't. Maybe pick one and get really good at it. But either way, go find something that brings you joy, that fulfills you outside of work, outside of school, outside of your family. Go find a hobby that just makes you happy, something that's just for you, time that is just for you, time that is your own. Go find that, go do that, and let me know how it goes. And I hope you make friends along the way. That's really what I set out to do with a lot of my hobbies, and I did very successfully. It's a beautiful place, beautiful way to make friends and connect with others.